I was jumping ahead. I was doing my homework over here, Nancy. My apologies. You will answer the question on Interstate 70. What creative ideas, my apologies again, do you have for solving the problem of Interstate 70?
Okay, first of all, I do agree with John on everything he said. Those are all really good ideas to do. We need to be addressing the amount of income that's coming in to take care of the roads. But I also think we need to go a little step farther in looking at other forms of transportation. High-speed rail, for instance, is something that we haven't even examined to the extent that I think we should. I think we made a big mistake a number of years ago by taking out the rail that we had, but I think that we could look at high-speed rail. We need to use better utilization of our rivers. I mean, we have great river opportunity if we should use that. It's much more efficient in some regards, especially for transporting agricultural products and coal and some of those things. It's more efficient in many regards, so we need to look at that. I also think that there are some things that we could do very creatively with the number of roads that we have. Since we are in the center of the country, and we're in the center of the state, we have some good roads in 36 and 50 that perhaps if they were enhanced, we could transport some of our truck traffic to some of those roads. By enhancing those roads and encouraging trucks to use those roads more, it would free up I-70 for more transportation of individuals. So I do think there are some creative things that we could do with transportation, and I agree with John that now is the time to do it because it ties right in with the economic development and the creating of our infrastructure, which we need to do to get our economy rolling again.
Thank you very much. And again, my apologies for trying to roll right over you on that one. I didn't mean to do that. Next one is going to be about ethics reform. And as I mentioned in the previous forum, there has been lots of trouble trying to get that one either out of committee or through the court system. What kind of ethics reform would you support in the next legislative session? Nancy, we'll start with you.
Gosh, all kinds of it. I think it would be great, and of course through my nearly 40 years of involvement with the League of Women Voters, we've dealt with this issue many, many times, and I'm thinking about the time that I remember when Ken Jacob came up to Moberly to our league meeting up there and gave a program on what we could do to enhance campaign finance reform, and he was right on then, and it would be right on now. When I ran before, we did have campaign limits, and I think it worked much better then than it does now. Now, there were some problems with that. There were ways around it, but some of those could be reinstated with some tightening up. I think that there should be lots tighter rein on lobbyist gifts and other perks, which I don't really think are necessary. I don't want to limit lobbying because I think lobbying is a honorable thing that needs to be done because we have to rely on people who are knowledgeable in a number of areas to help us as legislators. But I don't think there needs to be the money transfer that's there. So I do think there are lots of things that can be done with ethics reform, and I think the League could lead in that regard.
Thank you very much. John, what kind of ethics or campaign finance reform would you support in the next legislative session?
I think we need to reinstate campaign contribution limits. I think that's the most important thing that we can do. We are now one of only a small handful of states in the entire country that have no limits on what a single individual or company can give to a candidate's campaign. And what that's done is it has allowed a very small handful of individuals to make very large contributions to campaigns all across the state and wield considerable influence while not participating directly in the political process. And I think that's unhealthy. I think we've taken a step in the wrong direction. I think we need to fix it.
Thank you very much. Next question is going to deal with, you were very short on your answer. It's going to mostly deal with the balanced budget. We are required in the state of Missouri to have a balanced budget. And so that often means that our legislators have to make tough choices. And so the question is, how would you address the revenue shortfalls that sometimes leave inadequate funding for public schools or the mentally ill, the judicial system, etc.? And I will leave that to go to John first.
Well, several things, and a couple of these I've touched upon already. Number one, we have a ballot initiative to increase our cigarette tax. We ought to pass it. We currently have the lowest tax rate in the nation at 17 cents per pack. We haven't increased it since 1992. And we have something in this country that I've come to think of as a shadow cigarette welfare state. And this is how it works. We spend an estimated $30 billion plus per year at a federal level on Medicare and Medicaid and VA hospitals, specifically treating smoking-related illnesses. If we increase the cigarette tax, we can help promote better health outcomes. We can reduce the cost of our federal government health care expenditures, and we can produce a substantial amount of revenue, $300 to $400 million for our public schools at the same time. We ought to do it. Number two, we need to take a hard look at the recommendations of the governor's bipartisan commission on tax credit reform. We have had a proliferation of tax credit programs over the last 15 years. They've grown from 2% of general revenues to 8% over that period of time. We have 61 special tax credit programs providing special breaks and funding to groups ranging from charcoal producers to grape growers to the film industry in Missouri. The commission made a series of, I think, sensible recommendations to allow a number of these 61 programs to sunset over time, and we should follow that. Number three, we need to push for fair sales taxes on Internet sales so that we stop providing an unfair advantage to out-of-state companies and a disadvantage to our companies that have a presence here on the ground. Sales tax reform in that area could generate an estimated $200 million. So those are three things that we can do to address our revenue problems.
Thank you, John. Nancy Copenhaver will answer the same question. How would you address revenue shortfalls that often leave inadequate funding for public schools, the mentally ill, the judicial system, and others?
I don't know if I have enough time to address everything I'd like to do on this, but I agree with John on several of the issues that he said. I agree totally with the tax credit study. That needs to be brought up again. I think they did a good job, the commission, and the legislature needs to take a hard look at that because tax credits have gotten totally out of line. The nearly $700 million in tax credits that were given last year would have gone a long way to solving a lot of our financial problems. We need to, I'm in favor of totally revamping our tax structure. We have an antiquated tax structure, income tax structure that was put into place in 1931. I taught high school business for 28 years, and I taught about our tax structure in my business principles and management class. And we always talked about the three-leg stool of taxes, you know, that you have property tax and you have sales tax and you have income tax, and you need a balance of those kind of taxes. And Missouri has gotten totally out of balance in that regard. I agree with John with the cigarette tax. I think that's a good start. There are a number of loopholes that we need to close. My gosh, and we've been talking about this from when I was in the legislature 10 years ago. We were still talking about loopholes, and instead of closing them, we've enhanced them. And we've actually reduced corporate income tax in the past year that has taken out about another $60 or $70 million out of our income at a time when we just didn't need to do that. And we also need to look at the use tax and the Internet sales tax in order to help even things out for Main Street business, because our main streets and our small businesses in Missouri are at an extreme disadvantage because of that. And there are just lots of things that we need to look at, and I think that ought to be a priority for the legislature.
Thank you very much. As I said to the others, the torture is nearly over. You have one more question to face from me and our audience, and it's the same question we closed with the last set of candidates, and that is, and Nancy, you will be first to answer this, identify your greatest strength and why voters should recognize that strength in voting for you in this election.
I think my greatest strength is probably my life experiences. That I've done a lot of different things, and I've been involved in a lot of different things, from education to government to serving in my community to being an involved citizen through League and all of those kinds of things. And I think that breadth of experience, as well as the experience I had in the legislature before, gives me the advantage to be able to just hit the ground running and be able to be an effective legislator. And another thing, I think, is just the fact that I love talking to people. I mentioned earlier about serving on committees, but my husband will tell you that if there's any place to go and people to do it with, that's where I am. So I love meeting with people and listening to their ideas, and I would think that that would make me an effective legislator.
Thank you very much. That was Nancy Copenhaver, and we're going to hear the answer to the same question from John. Identify your greatest strength and why voters should recognize that strength in voting for you in this election.
Well, first of all, I love my community very much. I have a long family history here. I grew up here, not far away, and this is a home that I care about very deeply. I've worked very hard in my life. My career experience has spanned really three fields, law, education, and business. I studied the Constitution in law school. Rather than practicing law, I went on to work with a firm that invested in and helped young technology companies based in the Silicon Valley grow. I went on to start my own small business doing essentially the same thing on a smaller scale, and I learned a great deal working with entrepreneurs and with people who run companies large and small in terms of what they need in order to be successful. I also started an educational nonprofit here in mid-Missouri about 3 years ago focused on early childhood literacy. I've become very passionate about our opportunity in promoting early childhood literacy, and as I said earlier, helping our 3- and 4-year-olds enter school prepared to succeed rather than set up to fail. Because one of the biggest problems that we have right now is that 30% of our young people still fail to graduate from high school. And the biggest reason for that is that kids fall behind at an early age and they can't catch up. So if we can help them stay at grade level in those critical early years, then it requires patience because it's a long-term investment. But it's critical, I think, to promoting personal opportunity as well as the long-term economic strength of our community. And so I think I bring an interesting skill set because of my experience across those three fields, and I hope to apply that skill set in making a stronger Missouri.
Thank you very much. We are now ready for the 1-minute candidate closing remarks. The candidates will speak in the reverse order from their opening statements. So, John, I almost hate to do this for you since you just got through talking, but John Wright, you will speak first.
Well, thank you. I just have to start by saying it's an unusual political race when you come to like your opponent more and more with each passing month. But that has been the case in this campaign. So, Nancy, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I've enjoyed seeing your work ethic. And I've enjoyed hearing your perspectives on a range of issues, so thank you for that. We have had a tough couple of years here in the state, and there's no doubt about that. And I think a great deal is going to be asked of my generation. And I think that the critical question that is going to be asked of us over and over again over the coming years is, are we big enough? Are we big enough to conduct our public life in a spirit of mutual respect rather than tearing each other down? And are we big enough to make sacrifices together today in order to build for a stronger future? And are we big enough to overcome the setbacks of the last couple of years and keep our eyes focused on the big opportunities that still lie just in front of us? And my answer, and my campaign's answer, And this community's answer is yes, we are, and we're going to show it. Thank you.
Nancy?
Thank you very much. I didn't really file for state representative as a stepping stone to another job, and I have no desire to run for higher office or become a high-paid lobbyist. I just want to bring reasonable representation to the 47th District. A mentor of mine, who many of you may know and respect, told me once that the job of state representative is really threefold: to be fiscally responsible and pass a state budget that keeps the state motto in mind: let the welfare of the people be the supreme law. To study proposed legislation and vote with the interest of the citizens in mind, and to be an advocate for one's constituents in dealing with the bureaucracy of state government. I pledge to do all of that, to listen to you, to keep you informed, and to strive to make Missouri a great place to live. I ask for your vote for me, Nancy Copenhaver, in the Democratic primary on August 7th. Thank you.
Let's give a nice round of applause to both of our candidates this evening. And just for our listeners, that was Nancy Copenhaver and John Wright. They are the candidates in the 47th Democratic primary, which is, as Nancy mentioned, on August 7th. And the League of Women Voters, the Columbia Public Library, and KFRU want to thank all the candidates and community members for participating tonight. We would also like to thank Sam Griffin. Sam, where are you? Wave to the people, Sam. For recording this program to be aired on KOPN before the August 7th primary election, and working with us here at Newstalk 1400 KFRU to broadcast this program live. We would also like to thank, oh my, I'm going to mess up somebody's name. Sheila, is it Kosler? Close enough, she tells me. Good, I'm sorry. For videotaping the forum to be shown on MediaCom. I wore black. That's bad for TV. And just a reminder for the primary, especially for our listeners out there, you must select a party ballot, as Wendy Norton explained earlier, and can only vote for candidates in that party. You don't get to pick and choose. Again, thank you for participating tonight, and we encourage you all to go vote on August 7th.
If there's a local event that's important to Columbia, there's one place to find it: on MC22. Mediacom Cable Channel 22 has not only the best local sports action and the most entertaining performing arts programs, but informative shows as well. From school competitions like the Spelling Bee and Geography Bee, to speakers of local interest, to political forums hosted by the League of Women Voters, MC22 keeps you in the know. For local news, sports, and original programming, catch it on MC22.